Good morning. I'm harleysch from the harleysch organization with your daily video update for November 8th, 2022. Today is election day, a very good day to retire some servants of the oligarchy. And keep in mind that you have some good choices out there, including Diane Sare for Senate in New York, Joel DeJean for Congress in Texas, and Jeff Young for Congress in Kentucky. Now, there are clear signs with the election upon us of panic in the transatlantic oligarchy. The pro-war Democrats in particular are extremely nervous about the vote today. Now, we've continued our intervention against the pro-war neoliberals. And you've seen in the last days, LaRouche organizers confronting Obama and now Biden, adding that to the list of others that they have confronted over their support for war and putting us on a course toward possible nuclear war. Millions of views on videos millions of people have seen their videos of the confrontation with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Elizabeth Warren, and Obama and Biden. And also, not to ignore the confrontation with Mike Pompeo, a leading Republican war hawk who admitted when he was at the CIA, one of his main jobs was to make sure that they could lie. Now, the media, meanwhile, is filled with warnings of extremists, that there are right-wing nationalist extremists taking over the United States and threatening our democracy. Well, it's already happened. We have extremists doing that in both parties. People who are extremely committed to war, committed to funding the military-industrial complex, and to suppressing dissent at home, including censorship. This includes Democrats, but also some of their fake Republican opposition, as there are many of the Republicans who continue to vote lockstep with Joe Biden in funding the war against Russia in Ukraine, and also who support the idea that the United States must remain the world's sole superpower. So it's been up to us to lead the fight against that. And the question is, after the election, will Republicans move against the war? Will the Democrats move against the war? The key to determining that is to join us where there's no ambiguity, that we're opposed to the financial and strategic architecture that's putting us on the course toward war. There are some crucial strategic developments. I heard today on BBC rumors. Now, this is BBC and it's rumors, but that the U.S. is putting pressure on Zelensky to have negotiations with Russia. This follows meetings that National Security Advisor Sullivan had in Russia and also in Ukraine. While in Ukraine, he said the U.S. will continue to support the Ukrainian cause. So remember, this is a rumor, but it would fit that at this point, the Biden administration may be looking for a way out. Now, at the same time, of course, there is the report that they're planning on putting through another $50 billion worth of aid during the lame duck session. So it's important that our voice continue to resound in the halls of Congress and throughout the transatlantic region. In response to this rumor, a former spokesman for Zelensky told the BBC, "No, we're not ready to negotiate. We've been ready to negotiate all along. The Russians refused." It's an outright lie. Zelensky stopped negotiating when he was told by Boris Johnson on behalf of NATO to stop negotiating. Now, the situation is that they're demanding more weapons, and the situation is dangerously close to having U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. So it's urgent that this message get out. Now, on the nuclear war talk, there was a very interesting interview with Russian UN diplomat Polyansky on the Tara Reid show. And I'll just read you a few quotes from him. He said, quote, "Nobody in Russia wants a nuclear war," unquote. Quote, "If somebody starts it, it won't be Russia," unquote. Quote, We don't want to see the U.S. crumble, unquote. And finally, he said, what we do want is the U.S. to stop playing the role of world's policeman. The U.S. still wants to keep that role. NATO is a threat to Russia, to China, and to others, unquote. I have a new article posted on the LaRouche Organization website on the, quote, ambiguous, unquote, support for the United States for a nuclear first strike. So I'd urge you to go to the LaRoucheOrganization.com and read my article where it shows that it's the U.S. that has a first strike doctrine, or at least an ambiguous commitment to a first strike doctrine, whereas the Russians have insisted they will not use nuclear weapons in a first strike. Now, a second major development is the situation in Germany. It's moving toward chaos in the governing coalition following Olaf Scholz's trip to China, where he was openly attacked by his foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, who's basically a mouth puppet for Blinken. She attacked Scholz for the trip to China and has been insisting that Germany needs to decouple from China and from Russia, and that the German commitment to the war in Ukraine is complete and nonstop. Baerbock pulled a real stunt the other day by having the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Münster, which was the site of the negotiations that concluded with the Peace of Westphalia in 1638, which includes the idea of respect for the interests of the others. Well, she has no respect for the interests of the others. And to make that point clear, she took down the cross in the church that had been up there for the proceedings in the 1640s. She took it down. And the question is, why? Is she allergic to a cross? Now, very interesting, Scholz's ally, the head of the Social Democratic Party, which is Scholz's party in the parliament, Ralf Mützenich, defended Scholz and attacked Baerbock. Also importantly, Mützenich, who's one of the 90 names on the Ukrainian Committee to Counter Disinformation hit list, he's been talking about that hit list and forced the German television station ARD to mention his criticism. Now remember, he's one of 92 people, I think, on the list. That list includes Helga Zepp-LaRouche, Diane Sayre, Tucker Carlson, and me. So the fact that this was brought into the public is very important. Now, ARD, in its coverage, said this is nonsense, no one's targeted. They quoted a former Ukrainian official saying that it's just a list, but the list itself was identified as a list of information terrorists and war criminals when it was released by the acting director of the CCD. So the fact that this is out there now is extremely important. Now, one other note of interest, the United Nations had a vote on Saturday to condemn, quote, the glorification of Nazism and neo-Nazism, unquote. And this was clearly aimed at support for the Ukrainian forces that are Nazi militia embedded in the security and defense forces of the Ukrainian military. This includes, of course, the neo-Nazis who put together the Committee to Combat Disinformation. The vote was 105 to 52. To condemn Nazism. Who voted against it? The United States. I thought Joe Biden was worried about Nazi extremism. Well, not enough to stop sending $60+ billion to arm the Nazi extremists in Ukraine. Most of the votes against this resolution came from Western so-called democracies that are supporters of the war against Russia. Finally, I just want to thank people for the significant interest in the interview I did with Alex Krainer that was posted yesterday. And many of you asked how to get his book, because the target of his book, Bill Browder, who's a disinformation expert on behalf of Wall Street and the City of London, has suppressed the distribution of his book in the United States. Alex has generously offered that I can send a free PDF version of his book, The Grand Deception, to any of you who would like it. So you can send me an email at harleysch@gmail.com. That's harleysch@gmail.com. And let me know you'd like a copy, and I'll send you the PDF. I would also urge people to watch this week's interview that I did with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, which will be linked below in the description box. So in conclusion, let me say, remember, this is election day in the United States. Don't just vote. Join us in the campaign to defeat the neoliberal, neoconservative oligarchy and to organize a new strategic and financial architecture that's in the interests of every person on the planet, not the special interest of a handful of billionaires. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow.